I've been a security guard for 8 years. Night shifts suit me. Fewer people, fewer conversations. You're your own boss. Some people can't understand how you walk through empty buildings all night without losing your mind. But for me, it's the opposite. Silence is good. Empty is predictable. I worked the building on Harrison Avenue for 4 of those 8 years. 10 floors, roughly 70 tenants, a parking garage in the basement, and a coffee shop on the first floor that closes at 8 in the evening, leaving a smell of burnt milk in the corridor until morning. I know that building the way you know your own apartment in the dark. Every squeaking floor panel, every elevator with its own personality. The third one from the left always opens with a 3-second delay, like it's thinking it over. The 6th floor emptied out in March. The company that had been there ran layoffs and moved out, not gradually, but all at once over one weekend. On Friday, there were about 40 people working up there. On Monday, I came in for my shift, went up to check, and it was just empty. The furniture stayed, desks, chairs, a few filing cabinets, a coffee machine in the common area. It was as if the people had stepped out for a smoke break and never came back. For the first few months, I checked the 6th the same way I checked every floor. Open the stairwell door, shine the flashlight down the corridor, close it. It was dark up there, smelled like dust, and something in the ventilation system hummed, a low, steady sound I first thought was the air conditioning from the floor below. And then I stopped thinking about it at all. I first saw light under the door of Office 612 in early September. It was 2:47 a.m. I was walking the 6th floor corridor with my flashlight, and at the far end, under the door marked 612, there was a narrow strip of yellow light. Not emergency lighting. The emergency lights here are green and run along ceiling fixtures. This was ordinary office light, warm and steady, like someone was sitting inside and working. I stopped about 50 feet from the door, stood there, listened, nothing but the ventilation. I walked up, took the handle, and opened it. The office was empty. The overhead light was on, full brightness. Small office, desk at the window, 2 chairs on either side, a metal filing cabinet against the left wall. Blinds down, nobody. I walked inside, opened the bathroom door attached to the office, shone my light in. Empty. Looked under the desk, nobody. I switched the light off, logged it in my report, and continued down the corridor. About 5 steps out, I smelled coffee. Not stale coffee. Not the kind that soaks into the walls of a workspace over years. Fresh, hot coffee. I stopped, then turned back, opened 612 again, and turned the light back on. A white mug was sitting on the desk by the window. It had not been there when I looked a minute ago. I was certain of that because I had specifically walked the length of the desk. Now it was sitting right in the middle, near the edge closest to the window. I leaned in without touching it. Black coffee inside, no sugar, a thin column of steam rising off the surface. I touched the outside of the mug. Hot. I took out my phone and photographed it, logged it. Then I picked up the mug with a paper napkin from my pocket and carried it down to the security desk. Set it on the table and messaged the building manager. He called in the morning and said it was probably one of the cleaning crew wandering onto the wrong floor. They ran a check, went through all the contractors, and checked the access card logs. Nobody had been on the 6th, no sign of unauthorized entry. The next few nights were quiet, no light, the office dark like the rest. I started thinking it had been someone random, or that I had simply missed the mug on my first pass. That was an unpleasant thought, the idea that I might have missed something, but better than the alternative. 9 days later, The light in 612 was on again, exactly at 2:47. I only noticed the time match because I had written it in my log both times. 2:47 the first night, 2:47 the second. I didn't know what to do with that, so I just waited by the door, leaned against the corridor wall, and stood there for about 5 minutes, listening. No footsteps inside, no voices, just the steady light under the door. I opened it. Empty office. Light on, mug on the desk, same spot by the window. I took it downstairs, put it in the sink at the security desk, filled it with water, and left it until morning. In the morning, I stopped by 612 on my way out. The mug was on the desk. I stood in the doorway for a few seconds. Then I thought maybe I'd mixed it up. Maybe I'd set it here instead of the sink. I picked it up, checked the logo. Same insurance company, same lettering. I took it back down and locked it in my desk drawer this time. Photographed the drawer. Sent the building manager a second message. He didn't reply. The following night, I opened the drawer at the start of my shift. Empty. I went up to the 6th. The mug was on the desk in 612. After that, I stopped touching it. For several weeks, nothing new happened. The light in 612 came on every night at 2:47. I went in, saw the empty room and the mug, logged it, and left. The building manager stopped responding to my reports. The cleaning crew swore they never went to the 6th. I checked the access card logs myself every morning. Nobody was coming in. I got used to it. That was wrong of me, but I got used to it. It was one mug in an empty office. Strange, but not frightening. Then, in mid-October, I went into 612 and found the computer on. The monitor had been sitting on the desk from the beginning, wide and flat and clearly outdated, the kind of thing people leave behind when they move out. The tower unit was under the desk. I had always known it was there, but it was not plugged in. I'd checked that in the first few weeks, just to be sure there were no stray power sources up there. Now, the screen was lit, not in sleep mode, fully active, bright. I walked around the desk. A text editor was open on the screen. White background, cursor blinking at the end of the second line. I leaned down and read it. The document title was my full name, first and last, exactly as it appears in my employment records. The line beneath it said, "Don't come back up here." Nothing else. A blank document with one line. I don't know how long I stood over that screen. Long enough to make absolutely sure I wasn't reading someone else's name. Then I walked out, closed the door, went back down to the desk, and sat. 2 hours left in my shift. I sat through them without moving and without doing my rounds. In the morning, I submitted a transfer request to the day shift. I wrote that it was for personal reasons. That was a lie, but I didn't know how to explain the truth without sounding like I was losing it. The transfer was approved a week later. In that week, I didn't go above the 5th floor. I didn't call any elevators to the 6th. Once, late in the night, I heard a car go up and stay there. The indicator light on the panel at my desk showed 6 for several minutes straight. I watched it and didn't press the call button. In November, a new tenant moved onto the 6th floor, a consulting firm. They used Office 612 for storage, boxes, and old equipment. Almost all the furniture was gone. The desk was cleared out. The computer too, as far as I know. I've been on the day shift for 6 months now. Sometimes I stay a little late, help with the handoff, and leave the building after dark. I pass the elevator panel on the way out. Sometimes it shows the 6th floor. I don't go check. Okay, so the title makes this sound a little more dramatic than it actually was, but this was still one of the craziest things I have ever experienced. For some backstory, my mom and her sister grew up across the field from two boys. We live in a small city in Montana, so they grew up playing with chickens and swimming in the river. My mom went on to have my little sister Nancy and me, and one of the boys had twins, Jay and Bob. The twins' grandparents still live across the field from my grandma, so we grew up with each other, spending hours and hours together outside in the fields or down by the river when they'd come visit each summer. Now, I've always had a spooky soul, so when I saw an Ouija board at a local oddities shop, my wheels started turning. At the time, I was probably 14 or 15, and my sister was 11-ish. For reference, the twins are my age. Being broke high schoolers, we decided not to purchase the Ouija board, but to well make our own. We returned to their grandparents' house, immediately fetched some cardstock, markers, and a little bit of Scotch tape. Before our silly teenage brains could process the weight of what we were doing, the board was made. We justified making it with the following sentiment. They say not to do it in your own house, but none of us technically lived in their grandparents' house. So it should be fine, right? We got some salt from upstairs to make a salt ring, which we painstakingly laid out on a towel so we didn't get any in the basement carpet. None of us are very religious, I'd say spiritual at most, so we Googled a protection prayer and Jay read it aloud. And just like that, the four of us put a finger on our DIY planchette, and we were off. I honestly don't remember much about what happened in the basement aside from talking to a few people, the first two of which identified themselves with initials instead of full names, and a woman whose name I can't seem to recall. They were nice enough, I guess. But all three of them warned about some sort of darker energy on the premise. Like I said, I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I remember we heard a noise and got a little scared. We decided that we were done doing it in the basement after that. Being the silly young people we were, we got freaked out and decided to pause for a little bit. We always made sure to say goodbye, but we were really creeped out by this darker entity. The way the other spirits talked about it made it almost seem like it was controlling them or had them trapped. We took a break, but something about the board kept calling us back. Later, we went out into the backyard. It was a beautiful sunny day, but we were shrouded by the shadow cast by the house. Against my little sister's better judgment, which, honestly, we should have listened till we got the board back out, and before we knew it, we had contacted something. She said her name was Susan, and eventually we found out that she was a nun. We asked where she'd come from, and she said Sydney. We weren't sure if this meant Sydney, Australia, but then Bob chimed in. Wait, there's a town in Montana called Sydney. We asked if that was what she meant, and she confirmed. This is where things take a turn. We asked her if she's the evil spirit that the other spirits had mentioned. Regretfully, she was. And we started to get scared. My sister wanted nothing but to be done, but my strong-headed friends and I kept pushing it further and further. We started asking about her life, and I think we asked how she passed away. All of which you're not supposed to do. Eventually, one of us asked where she worked, or something related to that, and she spelled out a bunch of random letters. Confused, we tried again. Same thing. Weird string of letters that looked a little too much like a real word to dismiss. So at this point, we're freaked out and ready to be done. We said goodbye immediately and flipped the Ouija board over, too frightened to even look at the thing. While it was still fresh in my mind, I quickly opened the browser on the old Samsung my dad had given me at the start of the pandemic. I typed in the letters and hit send. My skin erupted into goosebumps. Somehow, in a way that defies logic. The letters turned out to be the name of a church in Norway. Remember how she had said she was a nun? And how would any of us, 3 high school freshmen and 6th grader, know the name of a Norwegian church? It's possible that my friends were pranking us, but I've never seen them look so scared. And I've known them since I was 3 years old. So my friends and I are done by this point. My little sister is white as a ghost. We say goodbye, forbid anything from following us, and promptly burned the Ouija board. We didn't know that you weren't supposed to do this until afterward. But I digress. It's been 5 years since then, and thankfully, nothing seems to have followed us. But that day taught me a lesson that I'll never forget. You never know what you're dealing with. Who knows what's on the other side of the veil? And who knows who or what is trying to get onto our side? And one more thing. It could have just been a scam call. But I recently got a phone call from an unknown number from Sydney, Montana. Normally, I don't answer spam calls unless it's to do so in a Russian accent to mess with them. But for some reason, I answered this one. There was nothing on the other line,